Let me start by saying this: your ability to read people determines your ability to reach people. You can't win in business and leadership or even in life until you learn to understand the hearts of people, not just their words. Because here's the truth: people don't buy products, they buy presence. They don't follow information, they follow interpretation. Every relationship, every business, every conversation you will ever have depends on one foundational skill: the ability to read and respond to people. Social intelligence is not about being clever with words, it's about being wise with awareness. The moment you learn to see beyond what people say and sense what they feel, you unlock a level of influence that goes beyond personality. It becomes presence. When you walk into a room, you are already communicating before you ever speak. Your energy speaks, your posture speaks, your silence speaks. The art of connection begins long before the words ever start. There's a rhythm in every environment you enter, a pulse, a flow. Most people miss it because they're too focused on trying to be heard instead of learning to hear. When you walk into a room with social mastery, you don't rush to fill the air. You let the room talk first. You study the temperature of people's emotions. You notice who is tense, who is relaxed, who is pretending to be confident but quietly uncertain inside. You train yourself to see beyond faces and hear beyond sound, because energy never lies. People can say one thing, but their tone, their timing, and their tension will always reveal the truth. When you develop the sensitivity to read that truth, you no longer react to people, you respond with precision. The first shift in mastering social intelligence is realizing that people mirror what you project. If you bring anxiety into a space, you will draw anxiety out of others. If you bring calm certainty, people will relax in your presence without knowing why. The mirror principle says that every human interaction reflects something about who we are being in that moment. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you display. If you want to be treated with respect, speak respectfully. If you want trust, radiate honesty. People feel your frequency before they hear your philosophy. The most powerful communicators are not those who dominate conversations, but those who elevate environments. Listening is not just hearing words, it's perceiving intention. Most people listen to respond, but the wise listen to relate. When you listen deeply, you gain insight. When you listen carelessly, you gain assumptions. Social intelligence grows in the pause between hearing and speaking. The pause is sacred because it's where understanding happens. It's in that space that you decide whether to react or respond. Reaction is emotional reflex. Response is emotional intelligence. When you pause, you take back power from impulse. You make room for wisdom. You let silence do the heavy lifting, and silence often says more than speeches ever could. People are emotional echoes of their experiences. When someone reacts harshly toward you, it's rarely about you. It's about the patterns they've been carrying for years. A socially intelligent person doesn't take offense easily because they recognize that pain speaks louder than logic. Instead of fighting the echo, they feel the frequency. They ask themselves, what wound is speaking right now? Responding to the heart rather than the habit requires humility and patience. It means refusing to add fuel to emotional fire. When you meet anger with empathy, hostility loses its audience. When you show understanding instead of judgment, connection begins to grow. The ability to see the soul behind the storm is the mark of real maturity. Another element of social mastery is adaptation. Every person speaks a different internal language. Some speak through logic, others through emotion, and some through affirmation. The key is not to change your truth, but to change your tone so your truth can be received. Influence is never about proving that you're right. It's about speaking in a way that others can recognize themselves in your message. When you learn to match your energy to the person in front of you without losing your authenticity, you gain the power to communicate across personalities, backgrounds, and belief systems. You become a translator of truth. That's when influence becomes effortless, because understanding becomes mutual. The currency of connection is respect. Respect is not something you demand, it's something you deliver. Socially intelligent people give value before they expect validation. They make others feel seen, heard, and significant. The moment someone feels valued in your presence, they open their heart to your influence. Every interaction becomes a transaction of energy. When you give appreciation, you receive openness. When you give presence, you receive trust. When you make people feel important, you build relationships that outlast circumstances. Leadership, business, and love all thrive on this principle. People are drawn to those who make them feel safe enough to be themselves. Social intelligence is not manipulation. It's mastery of meaning. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to challenge and when to comfort, when to lead and when to listen. It's the art of reading people's invisible language, the one written in gestures, glances, and energy shifts. And when you learn to read that language and respond with awareness, everything around you changes. Opportunities open, conflicts dissolve, influence expands. You begin to move through life not as a reactor to emotion, but as a responder to truth. People are mirrors, and every interaction is a reflection of what you bring into the moment. If you constantly encounter tension, criticism, or resistance, it's not always the world against you. Sometimes it's the energy you've unconsciously projected being sent back your way. Social intelligence begins with the realization that people reflect what you project. If you walk into a conversation expecting conflict, your tone tightens, your body language hardens, and your energy shifts toward defense. The other person senses that vibration and responds to it instinctively, often without understanding why. The most powerful people in the room are not those who control others, but those who control the atmosphere they carry. Every word you speak, every movement you make broadcasts a frequency. You are an emotional transmitter. If you transmit calm, you create calm. If you transmit frustration, you ignite friction. Many people try to change their results without changing their radiance. They try to alter what they receive while ignoring what they release. But what you give is always coming back to you, multiplied through people's reactions. If you carry insecurity, you'll attract situations that test your worth. If you carry confidence rooted in peace, you'll attract people who trust you before you even speak. The world mirrors your state of being. The mirror principle is not about blame, it's about awareness. It teaches you that your outer world often echoes your inner world. When you walk through life unaware of your own projection, you start misreading others. You might think someone is cold or dismissive, when in reality, they are simply reflecting the guardedness they sense from you. Social intelligence means pausing long enough to ask, what am I broadcasting right now? Before assuming what others feel. Once you begin taking responsibility for the emotional signals you send, you gain control over the kind of experiences you attract. There's a quiet power in self-awareness. When you understand the impact of your own energy, you stop trying to manipulate people and start mastering your own presence. Presence is not about words, it's about essence. When you enter a space grounded, grateful, and intentional, people respond to you differently. They feel safe. They open up and they mirror your peace. But when you enter a space carrying anxiety, anger, or arrogance, even the most well-meaning individuals will feel defensive. People don't respond to your goals, they respond to your vibration. To live with high social intelligence, you must become a student of your own patterns. Ask yourself why certain people trigger frustration, why some situations always leave you drained, and why you find yourself repeating the same emotional cycles. Most of these experiences are mirrors placed in your path to show you what needs healing within you. The moment you recognize that the external is reflecting the internal, you move from blaming others to refining yourself. The person who learns to adjust their inner state can shift any environment they enter. Imagine walking into a meeting where tension fills the air. Everyone seems guarded, cautious, uncertain. Most people would match that energy without realizing it, speaking quickly, defending their opinions, or trying to prove themselves. But the one who practices emotional control does the opposite. They breathe slowly, speak clearly, and let calmness lead. Within minutes, the atmosphere changes. That's not coincidence, that's energy alignment. People subconsciously mirror the most stable presence in the room. The question is, will that stable presence be you? The mirror principle also teaches humility. It shows that sometimes the conflict we face isn't about other people being difficult. It's about us being unaware. Maybe we entered a conversation to be right instead of being real. Maybe we listen to respond instead of listening to relate. When you become aware of how your energy shapes interactions, you stop pointing fingers and start polishing your reflection. You realize that every person you meet is both a teacher and a test, teaching you how you're showing up and testing how you'll respond. Social mastery requires emotional accountability. Instead of waiting for others to change, you decide to change what you contribute to the moment. You decide to project patience where there was once pride, curiosity where there was once judgment, and empathy where there was once ego. You begin to lead every interaction with intention, understanding that your presence is either permission for peace or permission for chaos. When people feel seen, they soften. When they feel judged, they shield. If you want someone to reflect understanding, you must first radiate it. If you want openness, show honesty. If you want collaboration, embody humility. Every relationship, whether personal or professional, follows this pattern. The moment you raise your energy, the reflections you receive begin to change. You attract higher level conversations, opportunities, and alliances. Not because the world suddenly became better, but because you became better at being the signal you wanted to see. The greatest transformations happen not through force, but through frequency. You don't convince people to trust you. You create an atmosphere where trust feels natural. You don't demand respect, you demonstrate it until it's returned. You don't fight for understanding, you embody clarity until it's reflected. Mastering this principle means realizing that influence is not achieved through volume, but through vibration. The energy you project is the lesson people learn from your presence long before your words arrive. When you learn to project peace in conflict, confidence in uncertainty, and kindness in confrontation, you rewrite the emotional script of every encounter. You become the thermostat instead of the thermometer, the one who sets the temperature instead of absorbing it. People begin to respond to you differently, not because they've changed, but because you've become the reflection they needed to see. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. They listen with the intent to defend, not to discover. But true social mastery is found in the art of listening with your whole presence. Listening is not just about hearing words, it's about perceiving the message behind them, the emotion beneath them, and the intention within them. The greatest communicators aren't those who speak the most. They're the ones who listen the best. Because when you truly listen, people don't just hear your silence, they feel your respect. There's a strength in silence that most people underestimate. The pause between words holds more influence than the loudest argument. The pause is not a weakness, it's wisdom in motion. It says, I'm not in a hurry to prove I'm right. I'm here to make sure you feel heard. When you pause before responding, you send a powerful message that you value understanding more than interruption. You show composure when others expect reaction. You demonstrate mastery when others display emotion. The pause is your power. Every conversation has a rhythm, and that rhythm changes the moment you interrupt it. Most people speak too quickly, rushing to fill the space that silence creates because silence makes them uncomfortable. But what they don't realize is that silence creates space for influence. When you pause, you allow the other person's words to breathe. You allow your thoughts to settle. You give wisdom a chance to enter before ego takes over. The pause is not empty. It's full of meaning, clarity, and discernment. When you develop the discipline to listen more than you speak, you begin to see things others miss. You start noticing what's not being said, the hesitations, the emotional undercurrents, the tone that reveals more truth than the sentence itself. Listening becomes a form of intelligence, an ability to decode people's emotions without them having to explain. And when you respond from that level of awareness, your words carry precision. They don't just hit the ear, they reach the heart. There's a difference between hearing to answer and hearing to align. When you listen only to respond, you're focused on your next point. When you listen to relate, you're focused on their perspective. One builds argument, the other builds understanding. Most people listen through the filter of their experiences. They hear what confirms their beliefs and ignore what challenges them. But when you remove that filter and listen with curiosity, you open doors that defensiveness keeps closed. The pause is where wisdom gathers its strength. The person who can pause in a heated conversation, in a business deal, or in a moment of conflict holds the real power. Because they are not controlled by emotion, they are guided by intention. The pause allows you to choose your tone, your timing, and your truth. It keeps you from saying what feels right in the moment but sounds wrong in the long run. When you pause, you reclaim authority over your reactions. You shift from reacting impulsively to responding intelligently. Listening is not passive, it's active awareness. It requires focus, empathy, and patience. It's a decision to quiet your inner dialogue long enough to truly absorb another person's point of view. When you make someone feel understood, you build connection faster than persuasion ever could. People may forget what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel while you were silent and they were speaking. That's what separates those who talk from those who transform. The greatest leaders, the most persuasive salespeople, the most trusted mentors all share one skill in common. They know how to listen deeply and respond wisely. They don't rush to fill the air with their opinions. They make space for understanding to form. They've learned that people open up more when they sense that someone is actually present with them, not waiting for a turn to talk. When you master listening, you become magnetic because presence is rare in a world full of noise. The pause also helps you perceive alignment. Sometimes what someone says is right, but the timing is wrong. Sometimes their message is good, but their delivery is rough. Without the pause, you react to tone and miss truth. With the pause, you can separate emotion from essence. You can see past how it's said and recognize what's meant. This level of understanding gives you influence beyond logic. It gives you emotional authority. Listening doesn't mean agreeing with everything you hear. It means respecting the other person's right to express it. It's choosing to value connection over control. When people realize you're not listening to judge them, but to join them in understanding, they let down their defenses. They feel safe enough to be authentic. And authenticity is the foundation of trust. Trust is the foundation of influence. Influence is the foundation of impact. All of it begins with the ability to listen well. Every relationship that thrives is built on the pause. Every leader who inspires has mastered the art of waiting before reacting. Every communicator who influences doesn't just know what to say, they know when to say it. The pause is the bridge between emotion and execution, between reaction and reflection, between chaos and clarity. Listening is not about being quiet, it's about being conscious. It's not the absence of words, it's the presence of awareness. When you learn to listen with intention and pause with purpose, you move from talking to transforming, from noise to nuance, from hearing to healing. Every person you meet is carrying a story you can't see, a battle you don't know about, and an emotion they may never express. The secret to mastering social intelligence is learning how to respond to the heart, not the habit. Because what people show you on the surface is rarely the full truth. The anger, the silence, the sarcasm, the withdrawal, those are symptoms of something deeper. When you start responding to what people feel instead of how they act, you stop reacting and start relating. You begin to see beyond behavior and recognize the humanity behind it. People don't always mean what they say in moments of emotion. Most of the time, they're not trying to hurt you, they're trying to protect themselves. The harsh words are defense mechanisms. The attitude is a shield. And the resistance is often fear wearing armor. Social mastery requires the emotional strength to see through the surface. It's understanding that pain rarely speaks politely. When someone lashes out, they're revealing a wound. When they withdraw, they're revealing a fear. The question isn't, why are they doing this to me? But what are they trying to protect within themselves? That question changes everything. Responding to the heart means slowing down your reactions long enough to recognize that emotional behavior is often unprocessed experience. The person who snaps easily might be carrying years of feeling unheard. The one who acts superior may be compensating for deep insecurity. The one who avoids connection may have learned early that closeness leads to pain. Social intelligence is the awareness that behavior is communication. It's realizing that people's patterns tell you their story if you're patient enough to listen with empathy instead of ego. When you stop reacting to people's habits and start responding to their hearts, you stop being offended by what they express and start being interested in why they express it. Offense closes connection. Curiosity opens it. The emotionally mature person doesn't match energy, they manage it. They understand that meeting anger with anger only multiplies conflict. Meeting fear with frustration only deepens disconnection. But meeting pain with patience brings peace. The more you learn to interpret emotion, the less you need to argue with behavior. This level of emotional awareness doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect or allow mistreatment. It means you interpret what's happening accurately before deciding how to respond. There's a difference between reacting to the surface and responding to the source. When you recognize that someone's behavior is rooted in fear or insecurity, you can approach the situation with clarity rather than combativeness. You can correct without condemning, address without attacking, and communicate without creating chaos. The goal is not to win the moment, but to win the relationship. Emotional maturity is the ability to stay centered when others are spinning. It's the discipline of not letting someone else's unhealed emotion provoke your unhealed emotion. The world is full of reactionary people who trade peace for pride in the heat of conflict. But the person who practices emotional mastery maintains stability no matter what's happening around them. They don't get dragged into other people's storms. They become the calm that brings direction. When you refuse to be triggered by behavior, you gain power over influence. Responding to the heart is an act of leadership. It requires discernment, the ability to sense what's happening beneath the surface. Some people need correction. Others need compassion. Some need space. Others need support. Wisdom is knowing which one to give. You develop that wisdom by paying attention not only to words, but to patterns, not only to tone, but to timing. You learn that everyone's behavior is a reflection of their internal weather. A person with peace creates calm. A person with chaos spreads it. The more you learn to identify the storm inside others, the easier it becomes to navigate interactions without losing yourself. When you practice responding to the heart, you become a safe space for others to express themselves honestly. People open up to those who make them feel understood. When they realize you're not trying to judge or fix them, they begin to trust you. And when they trust you, communication becomes effortless. Relationships begin to heal. Influence begins to grow. Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Your ability to connect with hearts will always outrun your ability to impress with words. It takes strength to be kind when others are angry. It takes maturity to be patient when others are impulsive. It takes wisdom to be gentle when others are harsh. But that's what emotional mastery looks like. It's not weakness, it's controlled power. It's the confidence to stay composed, to stay compassionate, and to stay clear even when emotions run high. When you respond to the heart, you become a thermostat instead of a thermometer. You set the emotional temperature rather than being changed by it. Responding to the heart, not the habit, transforms how you experience people. You stop taking everything personally. You start seeing everyone as a reflection of their history, their wounds, and their wants. You realize that empathy doesn't mean agreement. It means awareness. It's knowing how to care without carrying, how to understand without absorbing, how to see pain without letting it poison you. Emotional intelligence gives you control not over others, but over yourself. And that self-control changes the way others respond to you. Every person you meet speaks a different emotional language. Some communicate through logic, some through feeling, others through stories, humor, silence, or even resistance. Social intelligence is the art of translation, the ability to understand another person's internal language and communicate in a way that resonates with their heart, not just their mind. Too many people lose influence because they try to make others understand them instead of learning how to be understood. The goal is not to change your truth, but to deliver it in a tone that the other person can receive. Communication is not about being impressive, it's about being effective. Every relationship, whether in business, family, or friendship, requires adaptation. You cannot speak to everyone the same way and expect connection to happen. Some people need encouragement before correction. Others need clarity before comfort. There are people who respond to facts and others who respond to feelings. The socially intelligent person understands this and adjusts their communication without compromising authenticity. They learn to sense what someone needs in the moment and meet them there. When you master adaptation, You become versatile. You can connect with anyone, anywhere, at any level. Adaptation is not about pretending. It's about perceiving. It's not changing who you are. It's adjusting how you express it. Influence is built on understanding, and understanding requires flexibility. The more you learn to speak someone's language, the more influence you gain in their world. When you talk to a logical thinker, lead with reasoning. When you talk to a feeler, lead with empathy. When you talk to a visionary, lead with imagination. When you talk to a skeptic, lead with evidence. Adaptation shows respect. It says, I value you enough to meet you where you are. Some people think that adapting means losing yourself, but it's actually the opposite. It's knowing yourself so well that you can express your truth in multiple ways without losing your essence. Think about it. Water never changes its nature, but it takes the shape of any container it's poured into. That's what social intelligence looks like in action. You become like water, fluid, flexible, yet powerful enough to shape any environment you enter. The goal is not dominance, but alignment. The communicator who aligns with another's energy creates understanding without effort. In every conversation, there's a bridge that must be built between your world and theirs. If that bridge is built with arrogance or indifference, it collapses. If it's built with curiosity and empathy, it stands strong. The most powerful communicators aren't the ones who talk the loudest. They're the ones who listen deeply enough to mirror the other person's needs in their message. They don't force connection, they facilitate it. They realize that communication isn't about proving who's right, it's about finding what's real. When you adapt your message, you make people feel safe enough to receive it. Safety is the foundation of influence. People don't open up to those who make them feel inferior. They open up to those who make them feel understood. Adaptation is how you create that emotional safety. It's how you make people feel that you get them, even if you disagree with them. When someone feels understood, their defenses drop, their ears open, and their heart listens. And once the heart listens, the mind follows. Social mastery means being intentional with your tone, timing, and approach. You don't speak to a wounded person the same way you speak to a confident one. You don't deliver vision to someone in pain before you first deliver empathy. Adaptation requires discernment, the ability to sense what's needed in each moment. It's knowing when to challenge and when to comfort, when to speak and when to stay silent. The person who understands timing will always influence more than the person who only understands talking. Adaptation also means knowing your audience in every context. The way you talk to a client differs from how you talk to a friend. The way you motivate a team differs from how you inspire a child. Social intelligence gives you the ability to shift without losing sincerity. The key is awareness. When you walk into a room, you scan the emotional landscape before speaking. You read body language, energy, and tone. You listen before you lead. You feel before you fix. You don't dominate the space, you align with it. When you fail to adapt, you risk creating unnecessary resistance. Many conflicts are not caused by disagreement, but by miscommunication. The message might be true, but if it's not tailored to the listener, it will sound like noise instead of wisdom. Adaptation is how you transform truth into transformation. It's how you turn confrontation into conversation. It's how you ensure that your words don't just reach people's ears, but touch their understanding. The communicator who refuses to adapt ends up speaking truth in a tone that makes it sound like an attack. The one who adapts speaks the same truth, but it lands as inspiration. One divides, the other unites. The difference isn't in content, it's in consciousness. Adaptation is awareness in motion. It's knowing that connection matters more than control. When you master the ability to adjust without losing authenticity, you become unstoppable in influence. You stop forcing communication and start flowing in it. You start speaking in ways that move people, not because you've changed your message, but because you've changed your method. Respect is the invisible currency that determines the value of every connection. Before you can influence anyone, you must first show them that they matter. People don't remember titles, wealth, or appearance as much as they remember how they felt in your presence. Respect is not something you demand from others, it's something you demonstrate until it's reflected back. Every person carries an invisible sign that says, "Make me feel important." The socially intelligent person sees that sign and responds to it with intention. They understand that respect is not flattery, it's acknowledgement. It's recognizing someone's humanity before recognizing their performance. When you make others feel valued, you unlock doors that skill alone can't open. Influence begins when people feel seen. Trust begins when they feel heard. Loyalty begins when they feel appreciated. Respect is the bridge that connects those three. You can have the right strategy, the right message, and the right opportunity, but if you miss the principle of respect, you'll still lose connection. Every great communicator knows that before you speak to someone's mind, you must speak to their dignity. People follow those who make them feel safe, not those who make them feel small. Social mastery begins with giving what you want to receive. If you want loyalty, offer loyalty. If you want recognition, give recognition. If you want understanding, lead with empathy. Too many people try to demand respect through authority instead of earning it through authenticity. True authority doesn't need to shout. It speaks through consistency, humility, and integrity. Respect flows naturally toward those who carry it within themselves. You can't give what you don't have, and you can't receive what you refuse to give. The more you respect yourself, your values, and your purpose, the easier it becomes to extend that same honor to others. Respect is communicated through small things, the tone you use, the patience you show, the attention you give. It's in how you treat those who can do nothing for you. It's in how you behave when no one is watching. Respect isn't performance, it's principle. When you speak to someone, your eyes, your posture, and your energy all send messages about how much you value them. Socially intelligent people understand that every interaction is a reflection of their character. They don't withhold kindness based on status or opinion. They treat everyone with the same level of dignity because they know that honor always returns to its source. Every relationship is a transaction of energy, and respect is the highest form of emotional currency. When you invest it freely, it multiplies. The people you honor begin to honor you back. The environments you uplift begin to elevate you in return. Disrespect, on the other hand, depletes influence. It may win the moment, but loses the future. When you make others feel small to appear powerful, you weaken the foundation of your own authority. Influence built on fear is temporary. Influence built on respect endures. Respect is not agreement, it's appreciation. You don't have to agree with someone to treat them with dignity. You don't have to share the same perspective to acknowledge their worth. Social intelligence means creating a space where disagreement doesn't destroy connection. It's being able to say, I see you even if I don't see it your way. When people feel respected even in disagreement, they listen differently. They become more open to collaboration because they sense that their value is not conditional. Respect creates emotional safety, and safety makes room for progress. In leadership, respect is the foundation of loyalty. People will work harder for someone they respect than for someone they fear. In business, it builds trust. Clients return not only because of what they buy, but because of how they're treated. In relationships, it deepens intimacy. Love without respect turns into control. Friendship without respect turns into convenience. Communication without respect turns into noise. Every form of connection relies on respect to sustain it. The principle of respect also applies to timing. There's a way to correct without condemning, to lead without belittling, to instruct without insulting. Respect is in the delivery as much as the message. It's not just what you say, but how you say it that determines whether your words heal or harm. When you correct someone from a place of care, they grow. When you correct them from a place of ego, they resist. Respect gives you the discernment to know the difference. The socially intelligent person treats respect as a seed. They plant it in every interaction, knowing it will grow into trust, loyalty, and opportunity. They understand that people naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel significant. When you walk into a room and genuinely honor those around you, you shift the energy of the entire environment. You create gravity. People want to be near the presence that uplifts them. Respect transforms strangers into allies, skeptics into supporters, and moments into movements. The key is to lead with respect even when it's not returned immediately. Many stop giving respect because they didn't receive it back fast enough. But respect is a reflection of your character, not a reward for theirs. When you continue to operate from honor, you maintain emotional control and integrity. You prove that your standard isn't reactive, it's rooted. Every time you choose respect over reaction, you build credibility. You communicate strength without aggression, confidence without arrogance, and power without intimidation. Social intelligence isn't manipulation, it's ministry through mindfulness. It's the ability to meet people where they are and lead them where they could be. The most powerful person in any room is not the loudest voice. It's the one who understands the quietest hearts. So master the art of reading and responding to people, and you'll never have to chase opportunity again because opportunity will be drawn to the light of your understanding.